Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 6. We are officially 1/3 of the way through the semester, and you're doing such a great job. So week 6, we are starting our second unit, which is the Rhetorical Analysis unit. Last week, I gave a little bit of an overview of the unit. I can't remember if I recorded it or not. So I'm going to share my screen here and just give a quick overview of the unit. So we have week 6 through 10. So essentially all of the month of October and the first week of November will be devoted to this rhetorical analysis. This week, week 6, we are introducing ourselves to the 3 essays that will be the focus of our unit. And the assignment is to write an analysis of each of those summaries. I will discuss this a little bit more in depth. I just want to quickly go through the various weeks, just so you know what you have coming up. In week 7, we have assignment 2, which is to identify one possible audience for each of those essays. And you can look at that yourselves. In week 8, we then have the rough draft, where you are going to focus on just one of the essays that we've read and figure out 2 possible audiences to whom the author may be writing, and that will be a 900-word essay. This is the rough draft, and we are going to start using quotations and learning a little bit about MLA format and how to cite things properly, how to use in-text references and create a works cited page. And you'll learn more about that in the coming weeks. I'm kind of excited to start on that stuff. And then week 9 is a discussion board post, but you will be posting your thesis statements. Once again, I believe we will do a peer review of thesis statements. It may be that because it's thesis statements, we can actually do this in class instead of on the discussion board, but at least we'll have a place, a repository, as it were, to have those thesis statements where you can share and people can provide feedback. And then lastly, our final week will be the final revision of the rhetorical analysis essay. So let me go back to week 6 and focus on what we're actually doing this week. As you see, I have a journal prompt here, which is not required, but if you want to do the journal prompt, you're more than welcome to. You just click the link and you can start typing. I am asking you to consider audience. So this one, the prompt is, you've just learned that you're in danger of failing a class and might lose financial aid. And the question is, how would you go about communicating this message meant for these different audiences? So the suggested audiences are a friend, an advisor, instructor, or a coach, a parent or your partner, and a child. It could be your child or a sibling or that kind of thing. And I want you to think about the type of language you would use, media, if it's going to be via text, email, Snapchat, a typed out letter, what have you, and how that may vary according to the intended audience. And this is just to get you to start thinking about audience, because that will be the focus of this unit. So the due date for this week's assignment is Sunday, October 10th. And here you have the weekly objectives and then the context and instructions. So during the first week of this unit, there will be several readings that you will use for your essay and to the concept of writing the summary. So you have 4 pieces below. I suggest you actually read how to write a summary first. That's just my personal opinion. I like the fact that you need to know what you're looking for in a summary before you actually start to read the essays and think about the things that might be the most important. But we have 3 essays that you're going to read. The first essay is Disability by Nancy Mares. The second one is Cultural Baggage by Barbara Ehrenreich. And the third essay is called April and Paris by David Sedaris. It's very important if you're doing research online regarding this that you don't choose April in Paris. That's actually a song. And there is, before David Sedaris wrote this particular essay, there was an interview that he had. He did some writings about his time spent in Paris called April in Paris, but we are talking about April and Paris, and it's a little bit of a different take there. So let me take you into the resources for week 6 because there are some in-class exercises that we are going to do. The first one is called Writers in Context. And let me open this up. And what Writers in Context is, you'll realize that in the first unit, I provided you the context. I had some slides prepared and we did a KWL chart, know, want to know, and what we've learned about the particular people that we were reading and the videos that we were viewing. So now this time I'm putting that burden on you as students. And since we're going to be working on this in class, this is a way for us to work communally. So in this unit, we're focusing on various aspects of the rhetorical situation, which include the writer, what their identity is, the purpose or the reason for writing, and that kind of points us towards what kind of genre the writer might choose. We're also focusing on the audience or who the writer wants to reach, the context, which is affected by time or timing, the location, the current events, and the cultural significance going on around the writer, as well as the audience. And lastly, the topic, and that is the subject that you're writing about. So in this assignment, you're focusing primarily on the writers you'll be reading during this first week. So we have Nancy Mears, Barbara Ehrenreich, and David Sedaris. And as I said, I often do this in the beginning of the unit. Instead, this is something I'd like you to do as a class and provide context for each of the writer. So for each writer, use the internet to try to locate the information to help answer the questions below. So that you have some context. And the goal is to really begin to understand what sorts of audiences each writer tends to write for. So firstly, you're going to think about the identity of the writer. And the questions I have here are, when was the writer born? What is their nationality? What other characteristics of the writer are of interest, whether they're married, divorced, what their sexual identity might be, religion, if that comes into play, any physical or mental challenges they may have had to face either in the past or present. Have they published other works? What genres have they published in? And then what type of writer is this person typically seen as? They could be journalists, poets, academic writers, what have you. And then for context, I want you to research particularly what we are reading. So each of the essays that you've been assigned, when was it written? What year was it written? In which publication did it appear? Was it part of a book or was it in a newspaper or a magazine? The name of that publication, and then what sort of publication it is. So that is Writers in Context. Again, if you are not in class, you don't have to write up and hand in anything for me, but this is the background information that you should be doing as a student anyway. Often when we read these types of pieces, if they're contained in an anthology or a textbook, there usually is a paragraph of information that provides context for you. But we don't have that with these PDF handouts. So it's something that you kind of need to do a little bit of the background research to find out what sort of writer they are, and essentially what their situation is as a writer, what the rhetorical situation is surrounding this piece that you are now reading. So this is an important skill to have as a student and as a researcher. And then we'll go back to the week 6 and this handout called How to Write a Summary. This is an overview of what you'll be expected to do in the assignment. So summaries should be brief, complete, accurate, and objective. It's not someplace where you're going to insert your personal opinion, but rather convey what the writer is actually communicating. So annotating the text or the main ideas. It's important to underline and annotate, to essentially take notes of the essay while you're reading it so that you can make sure that you stayed awake and you actually understand the thing that you're reading. This is something that we'll be doing in class as well. You want to find the main ideas of each of the sections, and then when appropriate, each of the paragraphs in your section. And as I said before, you can underline the main ideas or write them in your own words in the margin, or on a separate piece of paper if you want to. And remember that a main idea is a complete idea or sentence. It's not just a few words. So don't write youth unemployment, but instead youth unemployment has increased. So you really understand what the main idea is. And then for planning the summary, you want to write the main ideas of each paragraph and each section in your own words. That's paraphrasing, right? And make sure that each is a complete sentence. Again, don't include any judgment about what is in the article, just state the facts. And then your draft summary. I won't detail these. You can read them on your own, and hopefully that makes sense to you. I also have a PowerPoint that goes a little bit more in depth